I went all the way back to, let me see, make sure I have this again. I went all the way back to, I think, 2018, maybe 2017. I don't know why I'm getting all kind of confused by this because I looked at it, but I'm just trying to find the number. Here we go. Excluding the COVID broken 2020 season. Okay, here we go. Over the past 5 full seasons, so that would be what, 18, 19, 21, 22. Now, so we'll go back. I went back to 17.
Okay.
Because this season doesn't count. Not yet. But if you go back over the past 5 full seasons, 52 teams made the postseason. And remember, they changed the format last year. 52 teams made the postseason during that time. 46 of the 52 had a plus defensive rating during the regular season. That's 88.5%, which means that only 11.5% of the teams that had below average or worse defense, only 11.5% of the postseason spots were claimed by them. Teams with bad defense, going back to 2017, only claimed a little more than 11% of the playoff spots. And those numbers are pretty stark. Those numbers holler at you.
Yeah.
And, I hollered when seeing those numbers because the Cardinals were one of the Major League Baseball's in terms of defensive run save. It wasn't just the last couple of years. They had one of the best defenses in baseball in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. They really were. They were very high on the list every single year. And knowing that the way you play defense has a tremendous impact of whether you're going to get to the playoffs or not, it just makes me more and more angry and frustrated that the Cardinals could take something that was such a important strength for a pitching staff that does not strike out many hitters, relatively speaking, and does not get the swing and miss like most other teams do. So the ball's going to be in play a lot, and you better have an outstanding defense behind him. And how they could let this deteriorate and disintegrate in one season, it's unacceptable. And I repeat to something we've talked about a lot since this week, since the players all came to the, saying all these great things about the coaches and the manager. How could you let your defense completely collapse and fall apart, knowing how vital it was to whether you're going to be a good team or not, and whether you're going to be a playoff team or not? How can you let this just completely fall apart to now where they're down in 27th, 28th in defensive run saved, and they're last in the majors in defensive efficiency, which means the ball's in play, do you convert it into an out? It's really simple. Their percentage of converting balls in play into outs is 30th, the worst in baseball, worse than all the other crummy teams out there. How can you, when you know how vital this is, how crucial it is to your team's success, with this pitching staff especially, how can you just let this defense blow up? And this is my pushback to all these people, and I don't even think it's our listeners. I'm frankly talking about some people who should know better. The pushback against this, the coaches can only do so much. Ollie can only do so much. Wait a minute. You go from having one of the top four, actually the second best defense in the National League last year. Before that, the number one defense in 2021 in the National League. You go from that to where you have you were tied with I forget who it was. Doesn't matter. I think it's Washington. You're tied with Washington. In this short time, you're tied for Washington for the worst defense in the National League right now. How do you let that happen under your watch? And if some of these wimps who are afraid to criticize anything, even something as obvious as this, I don't know how they answer to the rebuttal about, coaches and manager can only do so much. What? No. Why do they exist then? Well, and I go back to the example that is the obvious example. Bernie Miklasz, Jim Heuer, most Cardinals fans were sick and tired of watching a sloppy team with a fundamental mess, and the defense was below average, and when Mike Matheny was the manager, they just wouldn't clean it up. They wouldn't do a damn thing about it. Is one of the reasons why he no longer was the Cardinals manager around the All-Star break of 2018. But fans, and I don't blame him because I was there with him, were just sick and tired of watching the fundamentals, like sort of this tradition that George Kissel, the late, great George Kissel, made legendary, setting a standard for Cardinals baseball. We all praised Mike Shildt, deservedly so, happily so, when he took over at the All-Star break in 2018, and his top priority, and he got to it right away, was to improve the defense. So if manager doesn't matter, if the coaches don't matter, then let me ask you this. How can a Cardinals defense the first half of the season in 2018, which was really bad, how does that become an above-average defense after the All-Star break? They're the same players. There weren't any different players. The same guys out there with gloves, standing in the field. Because Shildt and his coaches attacked the problem, and they went right at it. And they immediately made them better. And you have all these media apologists for Ali. Well, the players say they like him. You know, it's like that has nothing to do with it. Of course they like him because they're not held accountable. All right? Well, the coaches can only – no. Mike Shilt's coaching staff showed you that it makes a difference when the people running the team on the field make something a priority. So if we're going to praise Mike Shildt and his staff for what they did immediately after taking over, then why is it out of bounds somehow, or why does it make you crazy to point how this manager, this staff, let this defense collapse after it had been so great the last couple years especially, or actually the last 3 years, including the COVID season. They were first in baseball in defensive run saves, and they've been first or second in the National League ever since. Now they're 15th. And they're not responsible for some of this or most of this. No sale. I mean, come on, wake up. Put the glue pot down or whatever it is. Put it down. Quit sniffing the glue. It's
truly amazing how it's gone south overnight. And
yeah,
you talked about before when they cleaned it up and it was the same players. There's a lot of the same players on this team that was here last year.
Yeah.
So you can't just, you can't, again, I said this yesterday, and you have 4 guys that have won Gold Gloves that are playing pretty much out there in the field at some point in some position every day. So you just can't use that as an excuse. You failed. Your group, your coaches, your manager, that group is failing to not clean it up. It's there. The potential is there to do it.
And a couple follow-ups on this, and I'm going to, I got to be the debunker because the way it works in our town, you get some reporters, columnists, whatever, they interview, Goldie and Arenado, and it's like, oh, no, we like our coaches. They work hard. They're great. Thank you. That's it. So you just go, oh, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine down there. Let me write this piece. Let me go on radio. It says, everything's fine. Goldie and Arenado like the coaches. They say coaches work hard. Everything's fine. It is?
No, it's not.
I tell y'all all the time, I'm a lunatic because I actually am pretty aggressive about telling the truth. So that makes me a lunatic and an outcast in this town in terms of relative to the so-called mainstream media. I'm sure there are softer sports media markets in St. Louis, but this one is like it's candy from a baby, man. I had a couple players tell me along the way, the guys who play for Lewis, they say, man, we're so lucky because, you're the one. I can't use the name that he referred to me as, and he wasn't hostile. He said, you're the one a-hole
I was going to say disturber, but a-hole works.
Yeah, you're like you and and Joe Strauss too. You guys get talked about a lot in here because you're always like going after stuff and you're very aggressive, and you bring up stuff and push stuff that everyone else just in the media ignores, and so you see that makes you the a-hole. And I said, well, look, if all you got to worry about is you got the big guy, me, and then the short guy, Joe Strauss, and this was before Derek Gould took over, then you all are very, very lucky. You're blessed. You don't have to put it. This is a soft market. The worst is it's like me and Strauss getting after you from time to time. You ought to count your blessings. And they laughed and said, "Oh, we do. Oh, we do. We get away with as a team stuff that would just get us crushed in places like New York, Boston, Philly, Chicago." And he's right. And it's still like that. If anything, it's gotten worse. It really has. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Cardinals get to skate and get to put this stuff out on the field. And it's gotten so preposterous that now, you have a coaching staff and a manager that in less than 1 year, less than a season after they had the number 2 defense in the National League and the number 4 defense overall, 69 games into this season, this thing is a disgrace. It's a total wreck. And yet, if you dare actually say, well, the coaches aren't doing a very good job, nor is the manager, because it's obviously not a priority. What you will hear is like, oh, that's not true. So all these players, like, Jordan Walker's a different case. But even he was failed by the Cardinals because, as I've told you a million times, they didn't even put him in the outfield at Double-A last year until August the 2nd. And he played 30 games in Double-A in the outfield. And they're like, okay, here you are. Boom, get on out there at right field. Get on, just throw him right into the pool, right, the deep end.
Yep.
And you know what he is now? And I don't even like saying this because I don't blame him at all. I don't. He's the 3rd worst outfielder in the majors defensively. He's -10. In other words, like 0 is average. He's a -10 in defensive runs saved. There's only a couple of guys worse than him, one of whom is Kyle Schwarber. He's the poor guy is the 3rd worst outfielder in the majors right now because they did not train him properly or give him the enough experience moving from third base to a corner outfield spot. They gave him 30 games in Double-A before deciding, oh yeah, he's ready for the majors. He'll be fine out there. Don't you, none of you, please, don't ever blame Jordan Walker for this. They failed them, and it's just another example of how this organization has lost not only its way, how it's lost its mind. You have your best prospect in ages, and you don't even take good care of him, and you don't do your due diligence to make sure he has sufficient experience after changing positions to become an everyday major league left or right fielder. I mean, it's but yet, oh no, it's nobody's fault though, right? No one's responsible. Coaches work hard. Oh, farm system's good, but coaches work hard. Oh, the instructors are great. Manager's great. I don't know what that guy at 590 The Fan's hollering about all of it. Everything's great.
27-42 is not great.
Yeah, so I just think it's unacceptable the way this thing defensively, and it's not the only thing. I'm just putting the emphasis on this, the way this thing has deteriorated, literally in 69 games, because they were near the top of the heap last year in defense, and actually, again, I know I'm being redundant. 2018 after Schill took over, it improved a lot. Really good in 2019, really good, top number 1 ranked in 2020, in 2021, top 2 defense, actually number 2 in the majors, number 1 in the National League, and then last year they were second, they were 4th in the majors, 2nd in the National League, and now all of a sudden you wake up one day and you look and they're 27th, and they're hemorrhaging runs. And it's because of a pitching staff that's, who's ranks like 27th in strikeout rate and 29th in swing and miss rate. And it never occurred to any of these geniuses. It's like, we better make sure we have a great defense behind these guys because we ain't going to get a lot of punch-outs, And then, people will talk about, and I'll be real quick and I'll wrap this up and I apologize, but this one is really bugging me. And I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll elaborate on this because I wanted to make sure I had the numbers. So, Marmol and Mosaic, views injuries as an excuse, the WBC as an excuse. But listen, it's no sale on any of that because if you're going to use injuries as an excuse, look, first of all, it's your fault because you believe Tyler O'Neill would be healthy and that you somehow have convinced yourself that defensively Dylan Carlson is like he's just under Willie Mays or something, So as always, you overrate the players you have. And anybody like a Carlson who even shows signs of being able to, imagine this, go run and catch the ball. You're like, well, he deserves a platinum award. No, he doesn't. He's actually a minus defender. But O'Neill and Carlson were below average before getting hurt. So filling in for them were guys that were right around where they were in terms of where they were being below average. So you took two guys who were in the negative side defensively, and they're hurt, and you replace them with a couple of people, three committee of people, whatever, where they are about the same level in terms of being below average defensively as the two guys that were hurt were. So how is that an excuse exactly? How the hell is that an excuse? And then Marmol started to pick up the crutch a couple times after games when he was a little testy. People were asking him, and John Denton asks questions that gets the manager mad. That's one of the reasons why I love Denton. Well, how come you really having a hard time? Your outfielders hitting the cutoff man. This kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, we got infielders playing outfield. Tommy Edman is your best outfielder,
right?
He is. I double-checked defensive run save today. He's been a +1 in center, and he's a +2 in right. He's the only above-average outfielder they have defensively. But yet this guy's using it an excuse to explain the bad defense. Well, we got. Wait a minute, hold on now. We got infielders playing outfield. You have two. Brendan Donovan played 160 innings in the outfield last year, and he was fine.
And he won a Gold Glove, by the way.
Yeah, and he's fine this year. Okay, so the one infielder playing outfielder is actually a +2 playing the outfield.
Jeez.
The other guy, Brendan Donovan, is a -1. Listen, I don't care about a -1. That's trifling. It doesn't mean much. So how do you justify this defense in the outfield, and you're trying to pass it off on? We got two infielders playing out there. They're good. Do you watch your own team? They're good. They're not the problem.
They will catch the ball.
And by the way, someone yesterday said Edman doesn't have a center field arm. He's good, but he doesn't have a center field arm. I checked that out. Now look, small sample. Dylan Carlson's center field arm this year is a -1 rating, which is slightly below average. Tommy Edman's center field arm this year, -1, same exact as Carlson. So there ain't much difference. But again, I know that we've turned Carlson into. I felt like an old time reference here. We've turned Dylan Carlson into. If you would think that. Oh man, I haven't seen a gun like that out there since Dwight Evans for the Red Sox.
Yeah, slow down, people. Slow down.
Anyway, so it's just no sale, no dice. You can slip that stuff by these gullible people down there, but it ain't going to get by me because I spend way too much of my life in terms of time researching everything there is to research. You don't get much by me.
You know what? One more thought on Walker on the fail.
I don't blame him, man.
No, and
poor guy.
He has played 32 major league games right now. Imagine that's the same amount of games the Cardinals gave him down in the minors, and we know he hasn't been here that long. Let that sink in a little bit. We've known Jordan Walker is coming for a couple of years, and that's all we heard. Well, pretty much the same amount of games he's played this year, which is very small. That's the amount of time they said, "Hey, let's see if we can teach you how to play right field." I mean, that's just silly that an organization would only give that much time to a kid before they throw him up and say, "Hey, go on out there and see if you can catch a few, kid. And by the way, try to hit the ball in the air. Give it a shot." I mean, gee whiz.
Overall, you're right. Overall this season, Tommy Edman, and that's the other thing about this joke. We got infielders playing outfielders. Well, maybe it's good you're playing. Well, it is good that you're playing Tommy Edman in center field because he looks really good at it. But Tommy Edman, and here's another thing, and I do think that the shift limitation has something to do with it. But I didn't realize until I looked at it today. Tommy Edman's like a -4 playing second or short this year. He's below average technically at both of those spots. I think there's two reasons for it. I think the shift is a factor, although that doesn't explain Nolan Gorman actually improving this year at second, which he absolutely has. A second baseman's affected by the shift probably more than anyone out there. And he was able to use the full shift last year, and now it's restricted, but his defense is really improved. He's a -1 at second base, which is the best on the team. Better than Edman, better than Donovan. And seriously. Mm-hmm. So I want to, because I respect Edman so much, I want to sort of give him an excuse, maybe a little, for, he's not as good at second, and that's surprising because yada, yada, yada. Or short, that's surprising, yada, 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 because of the shift. But I don't think that explains it all. The second factor that does explain it, in my opinion, is that I look into all the data, and the Cardinals, when they used an infield shift, they've actually saved 10 runs. When they don't use a shift, and I'm not talking about the overshift, which you can't do. I'm talking about a shift within the new rules. They're a +10 on the infield in defensive run save. When they don't use a shift, a permitted legal shift, they're way in the negative column. So again, for the simpletons and the water carriers out there that says, the coaches, they can't do anything about this. Manager can't. Well, if you look at it took me 30 seconds to find this information. If your infield defense is better, far better when you use a shift, the allowable shift, and your defense on the infield, imagine that. It's much worse when you don't. Let's convene a team meeting. No, let's convene a coaches meeting. Let's have a little summit. You think that maybe I don't know, Skip. Maybe we ought to shift more. What do you say? What do you say? And then I mentioned to Mark Simon the fact that the Cardinals, and I did more research on this when it comes to their outfield positioning, and who sets the positioning. The dugout does. Yeah. They got those little cards. They'll tell them to move over here, go over there. This is how we want you to play that guy, blah, blah, blah. The Cardinals they are the second worst team in the majors in terms of outfield shifts. In terms of they don't do a good job of setting their outfielders up. They're not adept at all at shifting them in a way that is going to take away runs, going to save runs. They're next to last in the majors at doing that. But again, we're told coaches are great. They work hard. They do everything for us. We love them. Then the people typing, or, see, the Cardinals love those guys. So everything's fine. I don't know what everyone's complaining about. I don't know. I think maybe it's up to the manager and the coaches to put their outfield defenders in the right place. That might be a start.
That would definitely help. that story came out the last, couple days that MLB is going to limit spending on analytics and things like that amongst all teams. That might not be a bad thing for some teams. Maybe this team. Maybe they're too much into that. I don't know.
I think you can make a case, but I also don't know how good their analytics department is.
That's another reason.
If any of those people here learned of me saying that, I will say this. It's kind of an unfair thing for me to say because I don't know the particulars. But I know from DeWitt himself, as of a couple, 3 years ago, he said, yeah, we need to get better. We need to invest more and do more with our analytics. So that tells me that they weren't real happy. Now, I don't know if they're happy now, but not that they'll say it. Of course, you hear them or you hear some of their media people, you got the best analytics department ever,